little bit of a problem. And since this is a safe space, I feel like I can be vulnerable and honest with you guys. I have a problem with buying fancy schmancy fabrics. Like, anywhere I see them, I'm gonna buy them. And do I go anywhere fancy in my life? Never. No, hardly ever. But I found myself asking myself, why do I save these for a special occasion that's never actually going to happen? Why can't I just make something fancy and wear it to the grocery store or just in everyday life? There's nothing wrong with that. So today I want to show you how to sew up a super simple skirt that packs a lot of punch, but without being hard at all. A few weeks ago, I made this skirt. You could see it in this video here. And y'all went completely bananas. And if I'm being honest, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but when I go out in public, and I don't mean this to sound self-centered, but when I went out in public in this skirt, I got more compliments than like ever in anything, even on my wedding day. I wore this to a symphony concert at the Parthenon here in Nashville a few weeks ago. And so many people stopped me to say, oh my gosh, your skirt is gorgeous. And it was so much fun to be like, okay, thanks, I made it. There was actually a funny moment where this guy and his wife or girlfriend were walking in and he looked at my skirt and he was like, that is gorgeous. And my husband looked at me and he was like, that was kind of inappropriate. It's like, I know, but I also appreciated it. Anyways, today we're going to make one of these. That's right. You're going to make one of these because you can. It is not hard at all. The cool thing about this skirt is the fabric does the talking. The sewing skills needed are pretty simple, honestly. We're just making a simple gathered 2-layer skirt with an elastic band at the top. It's not hard. You don't need a serger or a cover stitch machine for this, but I am going to show you options on those machines because it does help up your game if you are ready to take those next steps. But again, all of this can be sewn on your sewing machine if you so desire. Now, finding these fabrics has become a little bit harder because of Joann going out of business. A lot of these are, this is from Joann, this one's from Joann, this one is from Fabric Mart. And that's what I came on here to say is there are still places to find this. Fabric Mart Fabrics is a fabulous website. And if you can go to their Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania location, so worth a visit. You will find the best deals. But if you want to search for this, type in the search bar like embellished tulle or netting, and it will bring up some options for you. Some of them will be sequined and very fancy. If you're brand new to sewing, I would maybe shy away from this for your first skirt. Sewing over sequins can be just a disaster sometimes. I've been sewing a long time and I still break several needles when I'm sewing over sequins because it's just that much of a pain. Worth it, but kind of a pain. So today, instead of using sequined fabric, I am actually going to sew my skirt up with this butterfly fabric. I've had it in my stash for a while. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Let me put these away. I'll show you these, but we're not going to sew with these today. I will find another use for these another day. So here is the full length version of my skirt. I like to wear mine up a little higher on my waist, and then I wear just like a turtleneck tight kind of shirt tucked in, and it looks stunning. Simple, stunning. The fabric really just speaks for itself. Now let me show you the butterfly fabric that we're going to use today because it's a little different. Here's the butterfly fabric. Again, I got this at Joann, so you probably can't find it now, but it's very fun. It starts like at the top, it's more sparse butterflies and then gets more concentrated towards the bottom. I've got about 3 yards of that and it will be perfect for what I'm doing. The basic idea around the measurement for this is you want to measure your waist or your hips or wherever you want this skirt to live when you're wearing it. Measure that in inches or centimeters or whatever measurement you use. And that's going to be your base. You're going to multiply that by 2. So you're going to need at least 2 times your waist circumference to make this skirt. If you want to do more, that's fine. You'll have a more gathered skirt. One thing to note is if you're using that embellished tulle, it's heavy. So I would not do 6 yards of that and expect your skirt to stay up. Okay, you're asking a lot of that elastic. I would stick with your measurements or a little bit more maybe if you're doing embellished tulle. This is a lot lighter weight, so I'm going to use 3 yards to make this skirt because when you get it all gathered in, it's really going to be just lovely. Have it turned backwards. It's really going to be I mean, look how pretty this is. Again, pick a fabric. The whole point of this is to pick a fabric that is eye-catching. It will cover up a million mistakes that you might make making the skirt if you have pretty fabric. The next thing we need to talk through is the lining. So for this skirt back here, I'll be honest with you, this was not the lining that I originally was going to put under this skirt. I was going to put like a dark, deep grape color because that's kind of what the color of the netting is on the embellished tool. Amazon sent this to me by mistake and I was supposed to get like a way darker purple. Then when I got it, I looked at it and I held it under the embellished tool and I thought, I mean, it's perfect. Like, it's not what I would have normally chosen, but it accentuates all of that beading so beautifully that I was like, there's just no way that I can't use this. So think about your lining fabrics and the impact that you want it to have, because even though it's underneath, you still can see it. Let me show you an example of two different lining colors with this butterfly fabric. So here I've got a really lightweight sage green color. When I lay the butterflies on top, it sort of turns into just this kind of darker, muted green. And that is beautiful. Let me show it to you with black. You can use any color you want, but it does make a difference. Remember, I'll say it a million times in this project, the impact of this project is in the fabrics that you choose. And you can find embellished tulle for really good prices, especially at Fabric Mart. If you see one that you like, but it's not on sale, just wait like a day. It'll probably be on sale the next day. They change their sales daily and that place is amazing. All right, so here is just a shiny black lining fabric. If you want to purchase this online, type in lining fabric. You want something very lightweight because you've already got a lot of weight from this tool. So we want to make sure everything is very lightweight and flowy. Don't use a heavy fabric for your lining. Okay, do you see the difference? I think black is the right choice for this because the butterflies need to shine and shimmer. The green sort of takes away from that. But if you wanted more of like a garden party ethereal look, that would be perfect. I want power and punch, and I want this to make a statement. So for me, it's going to be the black lining today. That's kind of my thought process on how I work through these decisions. And if you have a garment sewing fabric store near you, take this with you. First of all, you might be able to find the tool there too, but take your tool if you already have it with you, and you can even put it over like some quilting cotton in different colors to sort of get an idea of where you want to go with it. Now, I ordered this on Amazon in a 5-yard bundle. I'm not going to need all of that. I'm going to actually use my specific measurements for that. So whatever my waist is times 2. So essentially probably 3-ish yards would be safe. I know I'm going to probably use it for other stuff, so I got the 5-yard. The last thing we need is some beefy elastic. Your elastic cannot be like loosey-goosey, real flimsy. Don't go on the cheap stuff with the elastic for this project because it's holding the whole skirt up. Let's put credit where credit is due. This stuff's a workhorse. I got it on Amazon. I'll link it below. It's 2 inches wide, and for me, that's comfortable. For those of you with smaller waists, you may want to do 1.5 inches. That's fine. I've actually used 3-inch elastic on this before and it worked great. It's all preference. 2-inch I feel like is a safe, it looks like a belt, right? Like it's very pretty. Again, I will link this below so you can get some. And then of course, thread to match. So since mine is going to be entirely black today, I'm going to use black glide thread. It's a nice silky polyester thread. It'll help when we're gathering the top of that skirt to really let the fabric slide easily across the thread. So that's what I'm going to use. I got this at Sewing Parts Online. I will link it below. We've got our outer tulle, our fancy statement fabric. We've got our lining, we've got thread, and we've got elastic. The needle I'm going to use for this, let's do a universal 80-12. You could maybe go a little bit lower, but I think 80-12 will be good with some of these chunky butterfly bits. So that's what we're going to do. So with our measurements, we're going to measure around our waist. Wherever you're planning to have the skirt settle on your waist or your hips is where you should measure. Get that measurement. Multiply it times 2. That's the width of the fabric that you need for your lining and your tulle, essentially. Unless you want it to be a little fuller on the tulle layer, you can add to it, but don't add crazy amounts because again, that embellished tulle, especially with sequins and beads, can be very heavy. The next measurement we need to take is how long we want our skirt. I'm going to hold my measuring tape right where I plan for that elastic to be and sort of eyeball how far down it is to get to the floor. So mine is about 43 inches and that's to the floor. So that's the number I'm going to focus on for this project. If you want a T-length skirt, a knee-length skirt, just measure to that. Add just a smidge more for your hem and your seam allowance, and that'll give you the numbers that you need. The bottom of this might be a little confusing to you of like, how do we sort this out? Do we hem it? Do you trim like right up under each butterfly? I'm gonna hem this straight across. I've got a little bit of wiggle room right here. What I'm eventually going to do is cut some of this off closer to the end of the project, but I'm gonna be folding it so that it has a nice straight hem going across. That being said, just let this hang down when you hold it to your waist. And let's see, when I hold this down, I want the butterflies to be right on top of my feet. That'll be good. Let's measure that and see if it's close to our 43-inch measurement that I thought of when I held the measuring tape. So this is coming in at about 44. I think that's good. We're gonna trim off this top part because we don't need it. So to do that, I'm going to place a clip, and I'm actually gonna go down just a little bit more, maybe closer to that. I think 43 was more accurate. Let's see. Yeah, 43 is a little more accurate. I'm gonna put it at 43 inches. That feels good to me. And I'm going to fold my tool. This is where it gets a little tricky. Cutting tool can be a little bit hard. You just have to make sure all of your edges are evened up and you're catching all the layers because it's so small and flimsy. Lay this on my table, get it nice and even. Check your ends, make sure those are matching up well. And here's my clip. I'm gonna put my acrylic ruler just a smidge higher than that. Always better to leave a little extra and cut it off than to not have enough. And trim it. Don't be scared. It's all good. Now save this because you can make hair bows out of it. It'd be so cute. Millions of things you can do with leftover tulle. So we've cut our embellished tulle. You can hold that up. Looks great. Let's set that aside. Time to cut our black lining pieces. So my waist measures 53 inches. I'm going to measure 53 inches out. Then I'm going to double it. So come down another 53. Lovely. Snip in and rip it. It's the easiest way. Goes right along the grain. Save this. You can use it for something else. And then I'm going to trim this down to about 43 inches as well. So I'm going to fold it to a more manageable width. Make sure the tops are even. Now, ideally, you'll want your lining to be just a smidge shorter than your tulle at the end of the hemming process. But for right now, we're going to leave it around 44 inches because, like I said, it's easier to cut off fabric than to add it. So we'll lay this down. Make sure it's nice and even. Cut off at our 43-inch mark. Sweet. See, this isn't so hard.
Hard is that? Ain't hard, dog. It's not hard at all.
All right, let's sew some seams. Okay, the next step in this process is we are going to do some French seams. I know, ooh la la, it's real fancy. I'm just kidding, it's super easy. So take your lining piece and I want you to find your two edges on the sides. It'll be like your side seam, so right here. And we already have these wrong sides together, and that's what we want. I know that sounds strange because we're used to sewing the right sides together, but for this step, we're gonna sew the wrong sides. So line those up, and if I'm being honest, I typically put one clip in place, maybe 5 inches down from the top, but I'm not gonna pin this whole thing because I'm gonna be adjusting it the entire time I'm sewing it. Oh, I also wanted to show you, this is my spool holder from Sewing Parts Online. It holds the large spools of thread and it's perfect if you have a project that you're gonna be using a lot of thread on. Just thread it as normal and move on your merry way. Keep it kind of out of the way of anything that might catch it. So we're gonna put those raw edges together. I'm gonna sew this at 1/2 inch. I'm gonna be sewing this at 1/2 inch seam allowance at a 2.5 stitch length. Start with a back stitch and start working your way down. Do your best to maintain that 1/2 inch seam allowance. And while we're doing this, let me explain what a French seam is. A French seam is where we're gonna sew the wrong sides of the fabric together first. Then we'll trim down that seam allowance so it's like maybe 1/8 inch off of the stitching. Then we're gonna fold the fabric pretty sides touching, which is what we're used to sewing. And when we do that and sew at 1/4 inch, it will conceal the original seam. That way, your raw edges are hidden, you don't have any fraying, and it is a perfect method on fancier fabrics like these. French seams are maybe a little bit trickier if you are using quilting cotton or something heavier, but when it comes to tulle or lining fabric, and if you don't have a serger, this is your perfect option. And if I'm being honest, I use the French seams on my tulle regardless of having a serger because I just like the way that the finish looks better. I would rather see a little bit of a gathering of fabric rather than a bunch of serging in, because let's be honest, tulle is pretty much see-through. So you're going to see something. Might as well make it cute. All right, finish sewing that line of stitches. Back stitch at the end. We're going to take this over and trim off most of this seam allowance till it gets to about 1/8 of an inch wide. Okay, I'm going to trim this down with my regular acrylic ruler to about 1/8 of an inch. Try not to cut through your stitches, because if you do, you're going to have to go back and fix it. That's kind of a buzzkill. And having to do that sort of takes away all the momentum you've built up so far. So keep trimming. But again, remember, none of us is perfect. And if that happens, it happens. I think a lot of new sewists get worried because they're like, oh, if I mess this up, the whole project is ruined. That's not the case, like ever. That's pretty much never the case. If you're creative, you can fix anything when it comes to sewing. Throw a patch on it. It'll be fine. Finish up my trimming. You can see that my seam now is pretty tiny, and that's what we want. So take that fabric and we're going to turn it the opposite way. So we've created a circle, which is good. It's what we want, but we need to turn it the opposite way now. This is fun. Now what I like to do for the most part is you can roll this in your fingers to get it so that the seam is at the outermost part of your fabric. You can try pressing this. Lining doesn't typically hold press super well, and if you're not careful, you can burn it. So I would rather just roll it, get it as flat as possible, and we're going to sew down this rolled area at 1/4 of an inch. Think through that now. 1/4 of an inch is larger than 1/8 of an inch. So whatever you trimmed your seam down to, you're going to want to sew the seam on this next part a little bit bigger to be able to conceal all of that fraying. So I'm going to lay this in the machine. This is a very important opportunity to be the boss of your fabric. Okay, don't let it boss you around. See, this fabric's trying to be snarky and I'm not going to let it. No, I'm not. So again, I'm sewing a larger than, and if you want to do this at 3/8 of an inch, that's fine, just to be extra sure that you catch all of that seam in the new seam. So sew all the way down and back stitch at the end, and then I'll show you what we've got. Okay, when we finish sewing and we turn this right side out again, you should have no raw edge showing. This lining is so slippery. Turn right side out. Heavens. All right. You can see now it's totally concealed. Isn't that great? That's a French seam. You thought it was going to be totally hard and it really wasn't. Isn't that awesome? Good for you. All right. That's what we're going to do right now with the lining. Now we started with the lining because the tulle might be a little trickier. So I wanted you to get some practice with your French seam before we move into the harder fabric. And I say harder loosely because it's really not that much harder, especially if you're sewing an embellished tulle that's like my butterfly fabric, because you're just going to be sewing through fabric. You're not going to be working through sequins. So if you are a beginner, I would recommend finding something that's not sequiny, unless you are just destined to be fancy. And then you can do it, I promise. You just take your time and you might need to switch your needles out a few times. Definitely buy a few extra needles if you're sewing sequins. All right, same process. We're going to put our wrong sides touching on the side seams here. So my butterflies should be looking at me, like the pretty sides of the butterflies should be staring at me on this step. I'm going to match those side seams up. I love this fabric so much. Wait, the pretty sides are looking. It's hard to tell sometimes. Load this under your presser foot. Make sure it's nice and even. We're going to do that 1/2 inch seam allowance. And if this gives you trouble with that 80-12 needle, you can switch to a lower needle, like a 70-10, and that might make it a little easier for you. We'll see how this does. Oh, she's working through just fine with that 80-12. Okay, just take your time, and every few inches, even up your sides. And the embellishments are actually going to help you on this because it stabilizes that tool a little bit better to sew through. So be grateful when those pop up. That's a good thing. Don't stretch your tool as you're sewing it, or it'll end up getting all like bunchy and weird and not even. So let the feed dogs on your machine, the little serrated edges that go under your presser foot, let them do their work, okay? You shouldn't be pushing this through or pulling it from the back. I know that's tempting as a new sewist to want to just get back there and yank on it, but don't do that. Your machine is perfectly equipped to move this fabric through exactly at the rate that it needs to. Trust it. Oh, this is so beautiful. I think I'm going to wear this. I have a convention coming up in Atlanta in a few weeks, and I think I might pair this with like a black t-shirt or something to teach. That'll be fancy, but also like kind of cash, you know? That's the thing I'm trying to get across is like, I buy all these fancy fabrics with nowhere to go. Well, why can't I just wear them on a regular Thursday? Why can't I? I can, and I'm gonna. Because I'm 42 and nobody tells me what to do anymore.
No one tells me what to do.
I'm not going to sew down into this extra area down here. I'm just going to sew, because we're going to cut that off. Maybe an inch below where my butterflies end. And like we did with the lining, we're going to trim off this part of the seam allowance right here. Just make sure that none of your other fabric is like bunched up underneath as you're cutting, or you'll end up with a huge slash in your skirt. So make sure that you're just pushing it out of the way. We're trimming this down as close to 1/8 of an inch as we can get. It's a little harder to see those thread lines. And if the acrylic ruler is messing you up, sometimes I just do this with my eyeballs. I find that to be a little bit easier. I just go a little bit at a time, and that way I can follow the thread line a lot easier. Okay, get rid of your scraps. I'm going to turn this right side out. And while I'm doing that, one thing to note that I need to be doing is I'm going to take my rings. They keep catching on this tool. If you have prongs on your rings, I would recommend taking them off while you're sewing this embellish tool. It just snags really easily. The lining can snag easily too, and we just don't want to cause any trouble. The other thing you'll notice real quickly when you're sewing a specialty fabric like this is if you have like any sort of like fingernail that's uneven or has like a jagged edge on it, it's going to catch. So keep a nail file or a pair of fingernail clippers in your sewing room. I keep them in my drawer all the time because I'm constantly trimming my fingernails down because they're catching on things, and that irks me. All right, we're rolling that seam out again. Do you see how close to the edge I have it rolled? When I sew this now, which is the wrong sides facing me, the pretty sides are together. When I sew this now, it should conceal all of that stitching and the seam line. Lay it under your presser foot. It's gonna be finicky. Tool has an attitude. Just be the boss of the fabric. I'm gonna sew this at 3/8 of an inch just to make sure that I capture everything in that seam, and let your machine do the work. Okay, I'm not pushing or pulling anything through here. And I'm just using my regular presser foot. There's no crazy foot for this. When I tell you that you can do this with your regular sewing machine, I really do mean it. And it's hard to believe that something this beautiful, I mean, I think people underestimate the power of what their sewing machines can do. It's really quite a phenomenal machine and tool in your sewing room. We're proud of you, little Trudy. Good job. I've gotten asked a lot lately, like, hey, we saw you tried this machine or that machine, and I had purchased a Juki Kokachi, like a $4,000 machine, and it was gorgeous and beautiful. I've sewn on the Janome M6. I've sewn on a few other different, like more expensive machines. and I love them all. I decided, a few of you have been asking, so I thought I would address it. I decided to return the Juki, not because I hated it. I actually loved it. I do not ever want to come across as unreachable to you all. I want you to always be able to look at my machine. My machine is 10 years old. It was $1,000. It's still made today in a different, they have a version under Baby Lock and under Brother still that is almost exactly the same machine, and it is a workhorse. I have it linked in my description below. It's fabulous, and I want you to be able to look at this and say, like, well, that looks like my machine. If your sewing machine is a $100 Brother you got at Walmart or a $15 machine you got at a yard sale, I want you to know that whatever you've got to work with, you are okay. Like, we can make that work. So I may upgrade one of these days. I would love to have a more advanced machine, but at the same time, I always want you guys to feel like I'm approachable. And the Juki just made me a little less approachable, and I felt bad for it, I guess, in a way. So that was my explanation. I know a lot of you have been leaving comments and asking, so that's why. I guess part of me really just loves this machine. I'm used to it. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a new, 2025 where the presser foot automatically pops up at the end of a stitch, or, you can watch Netflix on it. But it does okay for me. She's a good buddy. With all of this butterfly material kind of flying through, I'm just taking my extra time to make sure everything is flat and enclosed in the seams. And that's what you should do too. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Oh, she pretty. So that raw edge is now concealed. Do you see it? I don't. And you can barely see the seam right there, but I mean, it's barely visible. Believe it or not, we're halfway done with this project. It comes together really fast. The next step is we want to gather the top edges of our lining and our butterflies. I'm going to do these separately. Some people like to lay these together and then do a zigzag stitch or a serge across the top to connect them like this to the lining and then gather. And you can do that, but because I made this a little wider than that, I feel like that's going to just cause a headache. So I'm going to gather them separately, and then we'll sew a little zigzag once we have them laying together. So let's start with the tulle. I'm going to sew this the traditional way, and then I'm going to show you my hacky way for the lining. The traditional way is that we're going to do 2 rows of gathering stitches. Why 2 rows? That's a great question. 1 row would be easier. It would take less time, but you also don't have the insurance policy of 2 rows where if that first row breaks, you have to start all over again. With 2 rows, usually if one of those snaps, you can still kind of finagle it through. Some people sew 3 rows. If you do that, it's going to give you a much more structured top. And maybe that's what you want. You can sew as many gathering stitches as you like. I don't like doing gathers, so I'm going to do the 2 and hope that it works. And then on the next one, I'm going to show you my shortcut. So I'm going to up my stitch length to a 5, as long as your machine will possibly go. I've got my stitch set at a 1/2 inch, and I am just going to start sewing all the way around, maintaining that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Go right over your French seam. Make sure you say ooh la la and bonjour when you do.
Well, parlez-vous français and ooh la la.
We're sewing a circle. This is fun. I just like working with fancy fabrics because they make me smile the whole time. These butterflies just make me happy. Shoo, this is a wide skirt. Goodness. Oh, I feel it. Here comes the end. All right. We're going to go past the beginning by about 1 inch. Don't cut your thread. Lift your presser foot, lift your needle, pull it out, leave a nice long tail, and then trim it, okay? Got this nice long tail. Load it back under your machine. I'm going to do actually a 1/2 inch again. Some people like to do a 1/4 inch. I have a little extra wiggle room in this top of this project, so I'm going to use it. And that'll help me just kind of keep my eye on what I need to be sewing, which is following this 1/2 inch original seam line. So again, right where you started, you're going to start again. And you can see the tulle is already trying to start gathering. It wants to be a gathered skirt. It was born to be a gathered skirt. Don't you worry, butterfly tulle. Your day in the sun is here. I've reached the beginning of my stitches. I'm going to sew past them about an inch again, not overlapping my stitches. Lift the needle, lift the presser foot, pull a nice long tail. And as you can see, this sucker's already like, please put me in gathers. So to do that, I'm going to grab onto the tails that are sticking out of the front, like the part that's facing me. Grab those two tails, should be nice and long, and gently start to gather. And tulle gathers very quickly and easily. But again, you'll be glad that you put those two stitches in case anything comes apart. And I usually pull from like an angle a little bit further down from my stitch line. And you're just going a little bit at a time. So this is your traditional gathering method. Gather this until it's pretty small. It doesn't have to be the size of your waist. It can be smaller in this step because we will start evening out the gathers in the next step. You don't want it like tight because then you'll have to undo a bunch of that stuff, but just gathered-ish to about half of the size that it is now, because essentially then it'll be approximately your waist measurement, which is what we're shooting for. Now, if it starts to get tricky as you get about halfway across that gathered skirt, you can start pulling from the other end. But once you get a good system rolling, it should go pretty quickly. I'm toying with the idea of cutting it up just a little bit higher than floor length to make it maybe like T length, just to make it just a smidge more casual, which I can do. I mean, you can hem it wherever you want. Got a lot of gathers coming from this side, so I'm going to take a break and unravel this from my hand and pull on the opposite end. It's a good idea to work from both ends at least a little bit so that you don't pull the gathers out because your thread's really short on one side when you go to even them. So now, clearly this is going to fit me nicely. It's okay if it's really gathered tight for right now. Okay, put this aside. Let me show you my gathering method. That's my cheat method for this one. So from this front side, I'm going to lay this under my machine. Some of you seasoned sewists may frown upon this method. Start your stitches. You're staying at a 5. Sew a couple stitches and then reach up. And where you have your thread up here, I want you to put some pressure on it and tug it. And you'll see that the fabric coming out at the other end of your presser foot is automatically gathered. Now you could do this by like upping your tension a bunch. I just don't like to mess with my tensions. I'm just gonna pull on the thread. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay. So this does take 2 hands and you have to be coordinated a little bit to be able to do it, but it really does go fast. And then you don't have to pull those gathers, which is kind of nice. What's nice about this too is even if you get to the end and it's not the right fit, you can still adjust the gathers. You'll just have to do it more carefully because you only have the one thread. So make sure when you do finish sewing your circle that you leave a nice long tail so you have wiggle room to move along that thread line. All right, sew past your original set of stitches by about 2 inches and don't overlap your stitches. Then lift your presser foot and your needle and pull this nice and long. See, it's already gathered. It's kind of magical, right? All right, now you can see now if I hold this up, it's already about kind of where I need it to be. Now it looks like the stitches fell out of this little area. It is a slick fabric. If that happens to you, it's fine. Just straighten it out just a bit and go back to where your stitches last were correct and start sewing about 2 inches before that. And we'll just add another little set. No biggie. As long as you leave that tail to work with your gathers, you should be fine. Beautiful. Now it's time to cut our elastic. For the elastic, you're going to want to wrap it around your waist. And this is just without any stretch. This is the length that it is. So I'm going to cut it there, but we're going to trim a smidge off, but it's just too hard to estimate when it's got this big roll that you're trying to wrestle. So now wrap it again. And I want to take off some of these inches because look how stretchy this is. If this is just right at my waist, it'll work, but it may not give me like the cinching around my waist that I want. So I'm going to pull this a smidge tighter, hold it in place, and see what stretch you have left. I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little less. You should have the ability to get it up over your hips or down over your head still, but enough that it feels like it's secure. Okay. That being said, I'm going to look at this top area and see where it's overlapping right here. And about an inch up from that, I'm going to hold and I'm going to cut this section off. Okay. Now we're going to sew a teeny French seam. So put two ends together. It really doesn't matter unless you have like a decorated elastic. Then you want to watch for your right and wrong sides. Go to 2.5 for your stitch length. Sew it at 1/2 of an inch. Make sure you use your back stitch. I'm going to go all the way back up. I want this to be nice and secure. Cut your thread and then trim this down to 1/8 of an inch. Flip it this way. Make sure you don't have any rolls in your elastic and sew it really close. So I'm going to do this one at just over 1/8 of an inch. I don't want a lot hanging out here. Okay, so you've got this little French seam part on this side, but now you've got a nice clean edge on this side. See? Lovely. Now that we know how wide our waistband is going to be, we want to make our lining and our tulle the same width. So this one actually is perfect. I don't know how that happened, but it's exactly the width that I needed. So I'm going to just even out my gathers a little bit to make sure they're all nice and even. That looks good. Okay, set that aside. And this one is super tiny. Clearly not my waist. So we're going to have to do a little bit of finagling with this one. So just work the fabric so that it slides off the end of that long tail and keep working it until you get some nice spaced out gathers and your skirt width at the top is exactly the same as your elastic. That is just about right. Once you get it to the width that you prefer and it's matching up well, you can tie these tails in a knot so that the gathers don't change. So if you tie those there, they will stay in place now. Try and even out your gathers so you don't have any big bunches anywhere. Pretty. Now reach in through here and get your arm through. We're going to combine these layers. So what I'm looking to match up is my back seam, which is hard to find once you get this all done. Let's find it first. That's how good it is. All right, here it is. So I'm going to run that along the top of my arm. So it's right here. Find the back seam on this piece. Where are you? Here you are. And slide this whole skirt underneath. Make sure your right side is facing out and not towards your legs. You want that shimmer underneath that adds to the ambiance of your skirt. And now we're going to clip. And I'm going to use some longer clips because I've got a big seam allowance here. I'm using these larger clips. I'm going to start working my way around the skirt. Even your gathers out as you go. Make sure you don't have any big clumps of gathers. All right, it's all clipped around the top. We need to attach these together somehow. The first thing that comes to mind if you just have a sewing machine is you could go around this top edge with a very wide zigzag stitch where one side is going into the fabric and one side's going off back and forth. And that will give you a pretty good finish on the top. So if that's all you have to work with, that's okay. I'm going to show you just a few inches of that method just in case you're wanting to do it. Up your stitch width to as high as it'll go. And keep this pretty low. 1 millimeter to 1.4, that's fine. You will lay this underneath, make everything nice and straight. Line the presser foot up with the edge of your fabric, and you will see this wide zigzag stitch will connect your two fabrics together, and it'll also help control fraying. It's going to take a little while to get around, but it'll work. Do you see that and how it's connecting the two together? And then you can trim all this little hubbub up here, and that'll do a pretty good job. But let me show you what the serger looks like, and I'll do it in a different color thread so you can really see how, because this will be on the inside of our waistband. So I want you to really be able to see what it looks like and how it works. Let's go to the serger. This is my serger. It uses 4 spools of thread, and it essentially is going to knit itself around the raw edge of your seam. One bonus to using a serger on this project, and a zigzag stitch does the same thing, is it helps maintain stretch in the top there, which in this case doesn't matter because we're not using a stretchy fabric. But when it comes to sewing stretchier fabrics, it's wonderful. For woven fabrics like this one, meaning no stretch, what it's going to do is keep it from fraying. So it's going to trim the edge of your fabric with its knives while it's also knitting itself around the top of your fabric to keep it from fraying. If you are wanting to get more into garment sewing, this would be a great investment. My favorite beginner serger is the Brother 1034D. It's available at Sewing Parts Online in my link below, and if you use my She Sews Seams discount code, I can get you a discount on it. So I'm going to lay this under, straighten everything out. We're just going a little bit at a time. Make sure that your fabric is not bunched up underneath or you will cut a hole through it. And that's a bummer. You can even out your gathers in each section to make sure they're nice and flat. I like this method on the serger because it's cutting off all those frays, which is really nice and a time saver. And you just get such a nice clean finish with the serger. Here's what it looks like. Do you see that? It's a serged edge. It's wrapped itself around the edge of my fabric, and now I have a nice clean top to my skirt. Time to attach our elastic. Find your back seam and take your elastic and put the rolled, the like sewn side against the back of it so it's hidden. And you're going to put it about halfway down the elastic. And for this step, we're going to use pins. We're going to pin it halfway down, and I'm going to pin it horizontally. You can do it vertically if you want, whatever suits you best, but pin it from the inside because we're going to sew it from the inside so that we can make sure that we're hitting both the fabric and the elastic with each stitch, because we're going to do another zigzag stitch. This is also, if you have a cover stitch machine, a wonderful opportunity to use your cover stitch. I'll go into more detail on the cover stitch in another video, but since I'm not going to use it today, we'll just stick with our zigzag stitch because I want you to know that you can sew this whole thing on your sewing machine. It's important to me that this feels accessible. Now, is it going to be easy to make this skirt? It depends on your level of sewing comfort. So if you're brand new, this might be a fun challenge. It may not turn out exactly as you're hoping, but hey, everything we make, we get better. We learn from. Practice makes, I'm not going to say perfect, but practice makes improvement. Nobody's perfect. Okay, keep pinning keep pinning around your waistband just like this until you've got the whole thing secured. This is what it should look like, okay? Covers up all those ugly seams. I'm going to leave my stitch width at 7, but I'm going to up this up to where my stitches will be a little further apart to 4. We're going to lay this under the presser foot, make sure nothing is under all of that elastic. I'm going to line the center of my presser foot up with the edge of my seam, back stitch, and just start working your way around. Make sure you're hitting the fabric on on the left stitch. Take your pins out as you go. When you reach the beginning of your stitches, stitch past it, maybe like 5 inches. Reverse and pull it out. Now, when you stretch it, you're going to hear some threads breaking. That's not your zigzag stitch. That's your gathering stitches falling away. And that's what you want because that'll give you the stretch you need in your garment to get it around your waist. It shouldn't be a ton of ripping, just a little bit. Now, if you're happy with just 1 row of zigzag stitches, that's fine. If you want to add another set down here just to make it a little more sturdy, that's also fine. I'm going to try this on first and see how it fits. Be right back. Well, this is just divine. I've still got my pants on here, but I do see that this needs to be, the lining needs to come up just a little bit. I'm going to sew the lining up about 1 inch so that it's shorter than my top of my skirt. But for the top of the skirt, I'm just going to fold that under and do a very tiny rolled hem because that is a perfect length. And I do think I might do an extra set of stitches right here just to make it look nice and uniform. Oh, this is cute. Okay, let's finish this up. So for my hem on the lining, I'm going to serge around the bottom and cut off about 1 inch, and then I'm going to fold it up 1/4 of an inch. Now, if you are using a regular sewing machine, you can just do this by folding up either like 1/2 and 1/2, or however much you want to take off, fold it over and then over again. Whatever method you choose is fine. This tends to go a little faster for me, and it takes care of those raw edges. Okay, so here's what we took off. Let's go to the sewing machine. Set your stitch to a regular 2.5, and I'm going to fold this towards the wrong side and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, again, if you want to press this, that's fine. I don't feel like it, so I'm not gonna. I know the 1/2 inch is by just running it like the width of my presser foot. That's about a 1/2 inch, if not a little bit more. And I had some extra fabric to get rid of, so I'm okay with it if the lining ends up short. I would like it to be shorter than my tulle layer. There's our 1/2 inch hem. Not worried about the gray serging because it's on the inside and at the bottom. So now we're going to switch to my 1/4 inch quilt foot with guide. And this will give us a perfect 1/4 inch hem on that tulle. Some of you seasoned sewists are probably over there going, well, why isn't she using a rolled hem foot? I hate the rolled hem foot. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like it. I don't think it yields good results. I think it's finicky and has an attitude problem. I just don't like it. So I'm not going to do it. So instead, I'm just going to fold this over 1/4 of an inch and fold it over again another 1/4 of an inch. And that'll give me a lovely hem at the bottom. Center your needle, start with a back stitch, and then just up until you have it set, which for me is like right here where my finger is, sew it, but don't stretch it. It's very easy to want to pull on tulle and stretch it out. Don't do that. It doesn't like it. Okay, I've stopped. I'm going to fold 1/4 and a 1/4. And just keep going until you get the whole way around. It's going to take a while. While I'm doing this, let me say, if you have stuck with me through the entirety of this project, I'm really proud of you. This is not the easiest thing ever, but it's also not super hard. It just takes a little concentration and thinking and believing in yourself. And remember, your projects don't have to look exactly like mine to be beautiful. Mine may not always be beautiful. Yours probably are. I've seen some of you post stuff that's way cooler than my stuff. So if you're happy with it and you feel like you're confident to walk out the door in something that is that you made yourself, that's all there is to it. That's all she wrote. Sewing is meant to be a happy sport, something that brings you joy and makes you feel accomplished. So I hope you felt that today. There's our hem. Very simple, very straightforward. You can absolutely do this one. I'm going to go put this outfit on and we'll see how it looks. I'll be right back. All right, it's a little windy out here, so it might be loud, but I wanted you to see it in the daylight because it's so pretty. Are you ready to see the butterfly skirt? I think it turned out so beautiful. Do you see what I mean when I say that the fabric does all the talking on this project? That's what makes it so fun. You don't need to have a lot of skills to be able to make this really beautiful skirt. I also need to make sure that I mention that when you are hemming, you want to wear the shoes that you're planning to wear with the skirt. I will probably wear heels with this sometimes, like I'm wearing right now, but I hate heels. So most of the time I'll probably be wearing a flat shoe. Either way, this will work fine. I am just so excited about this skirt. I feel like a butterfly princess. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Chelsea with She Sew Seams. If you want to learn how to sew, please subscribe to my channel. I love making these beginner-friendly, just easy, quick projects to make you feel successful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.